Hi guys, TotallyDubbed here, and today I'm doing a video review on the Philips 276C8. Now this is a 27-inch IPS monitor that runs 1440p at 75 Hz. Now in terms of other specs, you've got a quoted response time of 4 milliseconds, you've got an aspect ratio of 16:9, and in terms of inputs, you've got two HDMIs, HDMI 2.0 and 1.4, and USB Type-C. There is also HDR10 support, however that is only supported via the HDMI 2.0 input. Now in terms of its design, it's very much a slimline looking monitor. Just to give you a look of it, if I just bring down the camera back a little bit, you'll be able to see it's got a three-sided borderless design, well, completely slim all over on the sides. At the bottom there's a very thin bezel, and there's a small square-shaped stand as well. Now around the back, what you'll find about the stand, or other than the actual thinness of the actual monitor, is the fact you've got your inputs and you've got a little joystick control over here in order to adjust, to access the OSD or adjust any sort of settings you might want. There's also a 3.5mm jack output for your headphones, and also a Kensington lock if you work in an office environment. Now the monitor adjustments are very minimal due to the fact that it's got a square-shaped stand. You've only got a tilt adjustment. There's no pivot tilt or pivot swivel or anything like that, or you can't rotate it either. Other Philips monitors that I've come across before have a slightly different stand which provide it a wider array of customization. I should also note it comes with a pretty big power brick, so it's worth bearing in mind that if you do want a nice clean desk setup, you're going to have to put that power brick somewhere else because it does take quite a bit of space. Now moving on from that, let's talk about the actual picture quality of the monitor. Now it's an IPS panel, and when I got it out the box, I was pleasantly surprised to see how beautiful the monitor looked out the box. And I was even more surprised when I put it through a calibrator and saw an average delta of 0.67 with a maximum of 2.11. You might be able to see it on your screen over here as to all green across the board. If I just zoom in, you guys might be able to see a little bit better. But essentially, it's absolutely incredibly color accurate. Now this was calibrated, well not calibrated, this was tested at the sRGB standard, and I didn't do any sort of calibration or anything. This is literally out the box, factory. This is how you would get the monitor, and I'm just using calibrator to kind of demonstrate if it is properly calibrated out the box, as in from the factory. Now in terms of the contrast ratio, it's one of the things that kind of lets it down. It's around 640:1, which is really low for a IPS monitor. That is kind of sitting in TN panel territory. You'd expect around 1200 or so for an IPS panel, so it's worth bearing in mind that I wasn't too impressed with the contrast ratio, at least via the calibrator as well. In terms of the overall brightness, now you can see over here it says 340 nits. Hopefully you can see that if it's not too small enough. If not, then I'm just going to show you guys because I took a picture, and you'll be able to see over here it's 340 nits when it's running in sRGB mode, but then when you take it out of sRGB mode you can get up to 380 nits, which is plenty bright, I must say. In terms of its sRGB standard, it is very impressive at 91.9% gamut coverage and a gamut volume of 93%. Now, I did say this monitor has sRGB sample, has HDR support. However, my tests from HDR were pretty poor. Now, the image you can see right now, you might be like, oh, okay, looks pretty good, that's probably with HDR, and you would be wrong, because this is the image with HDR. Completely dulled out, colors all over the place, just looks completely odd, and HDR was properly picked up. It was running over my HDMI 2.0 port as well, and Windows had HDR picked up as well. Long story short, HDR, I just wouldn't recommend it. I don't know why even HDR is even included. I just feel like they've just thrown that in as an inclusion. So in terms of HDR support, it's pretty poor, and I would definitely suggest using this monitor without HDR. I mean, you can see the color accuracy without HDR. Just use that. You don't need HDR. Now, also I did test backlight bleed. You can probably see over here there's pretty substantial backlight bleed at the top left and bottom left corner. Of course, it's complete panel lottery, but I wasn't too impressed given that the fact that the monitor should be aimed at a little bit of a more pro-grade type of people and people who want like a calibrated screen out the box. And I was just disappointed to see this outcome. Very much the same case when it came to brightness uniformity. It doesn't score great across the board for a monitor of its class. It's got around minus 14% variance to 15% variance at the bottom left-hand corner, and pretty much the same image I took with a backlight bleed. You can see where that bleed is coming in. It's coming from that bottom left-hand corner. Otherwise, it's relatively decent, and again, this complete panel lottery as to what you get. Now, in all honesty, all those measurements are great and all those things are great, but then how does it actually perform in terms of day-to-day usage? Well, honestly, as I said, I was very impressed out of the box as to how this panel looked like. It's extremely beautiful to look at, and the colors just really do pop. As I said before, the contrast ratio, for example, the Statue of Liberty popping out from the sky at the background doesn't come out as much as it should on an IPS panel, but overall it's decent. I wouldn't complain overly. I wouldn't overly complain, let's put it that way. Now, Philips told me don't comment on its gaming performance, which I always kind of laugh when they tell me that, but I did test its gaming performance. As you saw, I played Destiny 2 just to quickly test its HDR capabilities. I also went on Counter-Strike to see how responsive the panel was. On the fast mode setting, or on the fastest mode setting, the panel is relatively good in terms of response time, but the input lag of the monitor is pretty poor, and therefore it's not recommended for any serious gaming. It does run at 75 Hz, which is a little bit better than 60 Hz, so that's great to see. However, I wouldn't recommend it for an avid gamer. If you're a casual gamer, then it'll be absolutely fine. Dial it to the faster or the faster setting and then just go from it. Of course, the OSD times out always. Now, in terms of the OSD as well, I just want to show you in terms of what you get. You got low blue mode. Of course, you can change inputs, picture mode, HDR, as I mentioned, auto or off. Brightness, I've got it to 0, but I would recommend running at 65 to 70. I've just got it for the camera. And then you've got your normal settings. You've got PBB mode, audio, which, as I mentioned before, that's via the 3.5mm jack. Color mode, so right now it's running at the 6500K color temperature mode. However, I would personally use it on the sRGB mode. Of course, if you want to customize or increase the brightness, then you'd have to use on the 6500 mode, which again isn't bad out the box. OSD settings, USB, and setup. So overall, the access to the OSD is very simple and intuitive, and given that little joystick at the back, it makes it very easy to flick through. I'm not a big fan of the joystick being all the way at the back of the monitor, as in all the way behind it, rather than being just placed over here or somewhere, but I can't overly complain, and plus I don't think many people are going to be accessing OSD all that often. So overall, what do I think of this monitor? To be quite honest with you, I've got no real complaints. I did mention before about the brightness uniformity and the backlight bleed. Of course, it's not a gaming monitor. But otherwise than that, it's extremely color accurate. It's beautiful to look at on your desk, be it from the panel itself or the actual design of the monitor. But at 330 odd pounds, you have to just ask yourself, are there other monitors out there that would provide all these functionalities? And the answer would be yes. Even from Philips themselves, they actually have a monitor which is very similar to this monitor, except it just doesn't have a three-sided borderless design, it doesn't have that different type of stand and a very slim type of look. Other than that, it's pretty much an equivalent monitor. So yes, this is a good monitor, and yes, I would recommend it if this is the only thing you can find at this price range. However, my initial gut instinct is the fact that there are the monitors out there, including from Philips themselves. So worth considering others out there before taking the plunge for around 330 odd pounds. So there we go. Hopefully you've enjoyed this review. If you have, make sure you give it a like. Subscribe if you want to see more. Favourite and share and all that good stuff. And let me know in the comments below what you think of this monitor. Alright guys, I've been Totally Dubbed. Take care and bye bye.